Governor, I mean this with due respect, but how stupid do you think New Yorkers have to be to believe that this congestion pricing decision wasn't politically motivated?
Oh my God.
That was New York Governor Kathy Hochul getting pretty aggressively confronted over a congestion pricing initiative that she initially was supportive of, but abruptly moved to indefinitely suspend. And so the real question is why? Why did she make that decision? Why was it so abrupt? Well, coincidentally, Hochul has received tens of thousands of dollars in donations from the state's auto dealers. So that could have something to do with it. And look, let's just be clear. Congestion pricing is meant to make driving even more of a hassle for New Yorkers. And it's supposed to convince them to just ditch their cars and ride the subway instead. And some people are not in favor of that, including business interests that, want to sell cars. So we'll get to Hochul's response to that reporter's aggressive question shortly. And to be clear, I like those types of hard-hitting questions. But first, let's talk about how this congestion pricing plan would have worked. So the pricing plan would have charged a $15 toll for passenger cars in the city that were driving into Midtown and Lower Manhattan, New York City's notoriously congested central business district, from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays. Congestion pricing would have mostly affected delivery trucks entering the city and people commuting by car into Lower Manhattan, which is mostly higher income earners, according to an analysis by the city's Department of Transportation. So there were many supporters of the plan, although you're going to see some polling that shows the majority of New Yorkers were not in favor of it. But supporters of the plan did state that it would help fund public transit, reduce air pollution from cars, and it would also help to improve congestion for the wealthier people who want to continue driving the car and aren't really worried about the $15 toll. Let's keep it real. Now, the new traffic toll was expected to bring in $15 billion for the transit system and reduce the number of cars entering the central business district by 17%, or 153,000 vehicles. And to be specific, the toll itself would bring in $1 billion, which the Metropolitan Transportation Authority would have used to secure $15 billion in bond financing. Now, that all sounds however it sounds to you. You might think that sounds good, you might think it sounds bad, but broadly speaking, New Yorkers were not into the plan. So let's look at some polling. A Siena College survey in April found that New York City residents opposed congestion pricing 64% to 33%, with suburban respondents disliking it even more, probably because the suburban respondents would like to drive into the city rather than take public transit. But I wanted to give you those poll numbers, and I think it's important for you to know those poll numbers, because while corruption might have played a role in Kathy Hochul's decision-making here, she might have also been concerned about how it would impact her politically if they actually went through with the congestion pricing. Now, in the cities of Stockholm and London, congestion pricing plans were similarly unpopular when they were first implemented, but became much more popular over time. I don't know if that would be the case in New York. Notably, London has a fantastic public transit system. New York hasn't really invested in its subway system in a long time, and I think that's a big problem. Same with Stockholm.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth, as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Now, how the plan was created and defeated is worth getting into. So the story is bizarre because Hochul was in fact a vocal defender of the plan until all of a sudden she wasn't. So state lawmakers had officially approved it back in 2019. And then just last month, Hochul praised the plan at a global economic summit that took place in Ireland, saying it took a long time because people fear backlash from drivers set in their ways. But much like with housing, if we're serious about making cities more livable, we must get over that. But there's reason to believe that Hochul was actually just saying what she was saying with the hopes that the multiple lawsuits against this proposal or this plan would actually go through. So the New York Times reports that there are currently 8 lawsuits seeking to end the program, but none of them moved fast enough to basically kneecap it in time before its implementation. And the congestion pricing was going to become law on June 30th. Hochul announced that she would move to indefinitely pause it last Wednesday, June 5th. So, just weeks before it was going to be implemented, she made the decision. And here's how she responded to that reporter who accused her of thinking New Yorkers are stupid.
I will never think that the voters and constituents of New York are stupid. Those are your words, never mine. All I know is I encourage you to go to the next diner with me, and I'll probably be there Monday morning. Sit with me and watch the people come over and thank me. That's all I need to know. That is all I need to know. And if they were saying, we love the idea of paying more money to come into this diner because I live outside in another borough and I'm not taking the subway today, I haven't heard anyone say that. I've not heard a single small business owner say, I'm really looking forward to my New Jersey customers, the hardware store that was featured in the news just a couple days ago, the owner who says, it's going to increase the cost of deliveries. I'm going to have to pass it on to my constituents, and my New Jersey customers are already saying they're not going to come.
So, look, I don't know if I buy that like constituents are like running up to Kathy Hochul and thanking her, and that's really the reason why she made this decision. But there's a possibility that the political backlash was a factor. The other factor could be, legal bribes. And I say, the legal bribes that politicians get on a federal level, that also happens on a state and local level. So last year, the Greater New York Automobile Dealers Association, which is a lobbying group for new car dealers, and the New York State Automobile Dealers Association, a statewide trade association for car and truck dealers, both donated $18,000 to Hochul's campaign. And Hochul has long welcomed these donations from the auto industry. So for instance, since 2018, the Greater New York Automobile Dealers Association has donated a total of $92,700 to Hochul's campaigns, including a $47,100 donation in October of 2021. According to campaign finance records, the Automobile Dealers of New York Political Action Committee has contributed almost $78,000 since 2018. And so the money may have played a role as well. It could be both factors. It could be one factor more than the other, but I am curious to hear your thoughts, Waz, as a former New Yorker. What were your thoughts on congestion pricing overall? And what do you think motivated Hochul to suspend this policy?
I mean, the congestion pricing, as somebody who's been gone for 7 years, but periodically I go back and every now and again I rent a car. It's in lockstep to me with what feels like extortion of the citizenry of New York City, where there is a speed trap, a red light camera on every single corner, specifically in places like Brooklyn and Queens, where I'm just like, bro, like I would love to see statistics that, like, if somebody could show me actual empirical data that the city's streets are now safer for drivers because of these speed traps and these red light cameras, then I'll shut the hell up. But I would venture a guess that it has not made a market dent in making driving safer in the 5 boroughs. And this just felt like another price gouge to everyday New Yorkers, to be quite honest with you, because like I look at those hours specifically between 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. and I would venture a guess that 85% of the people who are driving into Manhattan during those times are doing that either 1 for an emergency or 2 for work-related reasons. Exactly, like there is nobody who on a weekday is taking a casual drive into Manhattan voluntarily just for the fun of it between those hours. Now, again, I'm an outer borough person, so I am somebody who's driven into Manhattan, Lower East Side, driven into Midtown Manhattan from Queens at night plenty of times, because you can actually park. Traffic is actually manageable. It's actually like enjoyable to drive into the city. after rush hour is over, when you are in the outer boroughs. But if you have something to do in Manhattan at 1 p.m. in the afternoon and you have a car, you are not driving into the city. It was just the other day, I was in Brooklyn and we had this thing to do in the Upper West Side. And we looked at Ubers and we looked at how long it would take to get on the subway. And it was way longer to get in your car and do this, right? Like, I think to get 11 miles, it was gonna be an hour and a half to get from Brooklyn to the Upper West Side. So I say all of that to say everybody who's driving into Manhattan is doing it because they have to. And this is just, to me, feels like just extortion of working New Yorkers. And again, when they say, oh, it's higher income people, relative to who? It's definitely not relative to actual New Yorkers. This isn't like a bunch of people making 600K a year. Like, if they are higher working, these are people that gotta drive to their job in Jersey, drive to their job wherever. And driving happens to be the best way that they can do it from the outer boroughs and from New Jersey.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm noticing this trend among liberal local lawmakers, and the way that they justify some of their policies is, oh, we're specifically targeting high income earners to subsidize programs or services that low income earners need and use. And so in the case of California or Los Angeles specifically, I don't think it's a statewide program, it's an LA program that they have just implemented and it will roll out soon. They have determined that households making in LA, keep in mind, I'm talking about LA, where the cost of living is astronomical, okay? For a household earning $75,000 a year or more, they would be charged, it was like an insane exorbitant amount. It's like an additional tax of like, I believe $75 to $80 per energy bill to subsidize the energy bills of low income earners. And listen, I think that's crazy because someone like a household earning $75,000 a year in LA is not a wealthy family. It's just not. Okay, and so like, stop doing this. Like, liberals need to stop doing this. And I had the same kind of feel when I was reading about this congestion pricing program in New York. I'm like, but delivery drivers are gonna be like hurt the most by this? Like, yeah, it sounds like workers. These are working hours, and I'm sure people aren't on the road because they wanna be on the road during these high traffic times of the day. And if you wanna encourage people to ride public transportation, make the public transportation better. Yeah. Make it, because in any other city, I think Chicago is a really good example. Their public transit is incredible. It's clean, it's safe, it runs on time. At least when I experienced it, it's been some number of years. And I want to ride the train. I don't want to get a taxi. I don't want to take an Uber. I don't want to drive. It is enjoyable, right? And so make it enjoyable. Show the public that government funded programs like public transit are great and it can work. But I don't think we've been seeing that in New York recently. I think it used to be a great public transit program, and I think that they've kind of allowed it to deteriorate.
Yeah, it's a lot of complicated factors when you talk to MTA people. Like, it's kind of crazy because in order to fix it and renovate it, you have to shut it down at certain parts. And like, it's tough when so many people are relying upon this service that is deteriorating. Shutting it down becomes hard for the people who rely upon it. And it's millions of people on a daily basis. It's kind of crazy. It's like I have a love-hate relationship with the subway because at a certain point, like, to get on there for like $3 or whatever it is and be able to go from like the bottom of South Brooklyn all the way up to the freaking Bronx for 3 hours. Yeah, I mean $3, yeah, it might take you some time, but like the fact that you can do that is kind of a minor miracle in itself, but it does need to be upgraded and updated. And I think you're right. I do think it needs to be made as a more attractive option, but I just don't buy the idea that people that are opting into driving into Midtown and downtown Manhattan every day during rush hour are doing it because they don't have to. I find that impossible to believe.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us. Become a young Turk.